Friends, family and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog, and as always I'm going to date stamp this. This is year 5 blog 13, or in legacy numbers blog number 221, and it's dated the 17th of the 5th 2026. And yeah, what an interesting week. It's actually been an educational week. Yeah, new word for us, an educational week. And just to reiterate, this is a diary, not a blog. This is the sort of thing that you would write down in your diary, your sort of thoughts, what went on, that sort of thing. I'm not going out there blogging about something. But there is no real word for diary in the YouTube algorithm, so I call it a blog. So if your sort of like demeanor is to not know what's going on in someone's week or want to be educated on how things are done and that sort of thing, I wouldn't bother going any further. But I really appreciate anybody that watches my diary, of course, and there's going to be some interesting things because there's people that want to talk about what their week has been, you know, my friends, and talk about things that you might want to know about and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, stay tuned. But I usually start off with just a little bit about what's going on today. I look out and it's a bit overcast. We've had some rain. It's going to warm up next week. That's going to be really nice. And I'll be splitting up a little bit about what's been going on with my week and what's going on with my mother, because everybody is, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are very interested in my mother. She's a person that used to appear in many of my videos. She used to go into my room when I was doing a live stream or when I was recording this diary, and she'd always wave and go, hello, and all of this sort of stuff. So a lot of people know my mum, and that's the reason why we talk about her as much as we do. And just to give you, you know, an insight before we get to it, she's had a comfortable week. There hasn't I've seen any degradation, take it like that. And some extra stuff has been bought for her to hopefully help a little bit. And, you know, my sister is a great help, and we've both been caring for her. You couldn't expect any more from us, I think. And I use that word us because it's a dual thing, and that's what needs to be iterated quite a lot. But let's get the news out the way. You know how much I really dislike the news because it's all bad. But remember, this date stamps this blog. So here we go with the news. Get the politics out the way. Former Health Secretary Wes Streetling resigned from the cabinet, stating he will challenge the PM in any upcoming leadership contest. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has also thrown in his hat for the leadership. There you are, bit of politics. As you know, last week it was the elections for your local area. Labour got absolutely trounced. Our PM said, I am not going anywhere, I'm staying where I am. And what do we get? People inside Labour going, I think that probably isn't true, because I'm going to throw my hat into the ring for a leadership contest. Go figure. Anyway, that's politics out the way. The next one was 4,000 officers were deployed during the latest protests going on in London this weekend. Think about that. 4,000 of our police officers that we need to be out there walking the streets, which they never do, all pulled in because of protests. And, you know, as much as I have no problem with peaceful protests, it seemed very much two protests were going on in London that dislike each other, I would say is probably the word, and they needed all of these officers. Now, as far as I know, peaceful protests have to acknowledge that they're going to do these things, these walks with lots of people and their members going through the streets. And if you've got two that totally dislike each other, why do them on the same day? I don't know enough, so I can't really comment, but it seems mad to me. Looking at the television yesterday, you couldn't miss this. The FA Cup final was on. Now, this used to be an exciting thing for me as a boy, and as my dad would be around, the FA Cup would be on. They'd do a portfolio of the two teams. It would run from the morning, from around about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. The actual match wouldn't be on till about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. It would go all the way on till 5 o'clock. And then you'd have the collecting of the medals and the trophy and the talk afterwards. And it would take you till about 5 o'clock. And my God, this would take up the whole channel for that particular broad spectrum of time. And this year it was Man City versus Chelsea. Man City chasing more trophies because they could have a possibility of the Premiership trophy, but they could also have the FA Cup. And they used to call it the treble because there was the European Cup. And of course there are other cups, you know, there's the old milk cup, the Caribou, they think they call it now. And anyway, Chelsea could sort of like win something because they've got nothing this year. It ran its course. I believe the end score was 1-0 because I didn't watch it all the way through. I caught a little bit of it, and Man City won. So, spoiler, sorry, should have said, but it's all over the news this week. The highlights have been on twice. It was on last night, it was on this morning, so I don't think there's anything much to miss there. On an awful note, and I totally think of this as a pointless exercise now, the Eurovision Song Contest. I know music unites us, all of that sort of stuff. I do get the feeling behind it, but it's never been the Eurovision Song Contest that I remember of the 70s and 80s as a boy. It changed drastically during the 90s, and it turned into something that I don't even recognise in the noughties. And here we are 26 years into this century, and I just feel it's had its day. It was celebrating its 70th anniversary. That was the big thing, or should have been, but no, it was protests. Still over Ukraine, still over Israel. And to be quite honest, at the end, Bulgaria won by a massive landslide number. I think they got 530 something odd votes. Where did the UK come? Flat last, 1 point. Didn't expect anything. He had a song called Eins, Zwei, Drei. I mentioned that to my sister who knew nothing about it, and she said, "What do you bloody expect with a title like that?" And I went, "Yeah." It was voted by us. I don't remember voting or seeing it, but then again, I wasn't really watching or looking. And I was glad that my friend was streaming last night, 20th Century Gaming. I was watching that. They were talking about Eurovision in there. Everybody was going, "What load of rubbish," and I totally agree with them. What load of tosh. If you're a big Eurovision fan, I do apologise, but it is an opinion, and this goes into my diary. To me, it's had its day. If you see me moving about a bit, I'm still in pain with my back, so do apologise for that as well. But to those people that love it, I'm so glad you love it. I do believe it's still the spectacle that you deserve. From my point of view, I'm sort of old school. There was a sort of like a clip show that was on YouTube. The only thing I liked about it was previous people that had been singers and artists that were in Eurovision Song Contest were singing the old songs. And there was songs of celebration, you know, that was done by Cliff Richard, and all kinds of everything that was done by Dana. They all came out with these different people singing them. They did their own interpretation. And to me, that was the time where Eurovision was something. I think I stopped watching when Terry Wogan was a commentator. There you go. So you're talking 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. Anyway, we passed Eurovision. Forget that. This was an interesting story. It's the last one. Hundreds of shoppers queued in massive crowds outside Swatch stores in the UK, forcing one store in Liverpool to close due to a frenzy over a new £335 watch release. Now, Swatch, I remember Swatch. Wow. Did I think of them as being big? No. I remember the Swatch watches. They were fast, cheap. I looked at them as being a brand above Casio. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but they certainly weren't the watches that I really thought of as much. So I had to sort of look, didn't I? So what is this watch? It's a combination between two, Audemars Piguet and Swatch. It's the Royal Pop collaboration. Now, that didn't really tell me too much, but when I looked at it, it's a convertible watch where the wristwatch turns into a pocket watch. Now, that's got me interested because many people won't know this because I've never mentioned it in my blog, but I loved pocket watches. Back in the day, I loved the little idea of a watch with a screw mechanism at the top that you put into a leather holder and clipped it to your belt. And I thought, wow. Or you put it on a chain on a waistcoat. And this goes back to the days where I used to love waistcoats. I bought many waistcoats. I've still got 30 of my waistcoats still around. They won't fit me anymore because they were in my 20s. And I'm in my 50s now. So fat chance of that. But I loved all the weaving of the my waistcoats, the glossy nature, the intricate stitch design of them, and I did them with a tie and a shirt and trousers, and used to go out with a lovely jacket. And I dare say my dad would have called me a mod or something. You know, I looked. It wasn't a long coat or anything. It was a suit sort of like joke, but it was a leisure top. And I think I've got pictures of me actually from there. Not sure. Didn't really take a camera out with me when I was going drinking in my 20s. But anyway, pocket watches. Yeah, loved pocket watches. Things to note, it's strictly in-store purchase. That's probably why there was a frenzy. Although £335 I'd find hard to sort of like gather up. It's limited to an 8 to 18 month run. First come, first served. Limited numbers on its first day. There you go. That will cause a frenzy, a fear of missing out, FOMO. It has a new System 51 mechanism, which has 15 new patents inside it. Wow. So absolutely fantastic if you're a watch collector. I can absolutely see why people would want this. And that's all I've got to say about that. It was just the nicest story of the lot. Just as I was going on, there's been a few YouTube videos. These two videos are out there at the moment. It's the new big Zap event going on in Coventry. It's in a brand new hotel, much larger, much bigger. Nice to see this. It is I think it's the fourth event. I went to the first two. It was at the same hotel. The second one was a better option over the the first one I went with my friend Mainmeister. It was a pretty much, we both mentioned it was nice, but it was atrocious if you wanted to go and see any of the talks. There was absolutely no choice. 500 people and only 50 people at best could go in and see one of these talks. Now, I went to the second one and they expanded that to around about 120, 130 people that would want the talks. Still, when you think about it, that's a fifth. So 500 people go, 120 can watch a talk. So you still don't get anywhere. I didn't go to the third one. The reason for that being, well, many reasons really. Money was a bit tight, but the main one was my mother was diagnosed with vascular dementia. So we're talking that far back. And of course, we're now a year past that matter. We're now at the fourth event, and it's at Coventry, not near Leamington, where it was previously. It wasn't in Leamington, but it was near it. And looking at the two videos I saw, one was the event had started, one was pre the event started. It was the early starters. And wow, much bigger. My God, I mean, you've got a whole section for the talks and all the seats are laid out. It looked like 200 to 300 people could be in this auditorium type section. What that basically means is how big an event is it for displaying all the games you want to play and all the machines. And again, it was a mix. I was going to a Commodore event I saw, and yet there were Amstrads there and Atari STs on display. And that's nice. Vectrex were there. I never had a problem with that. When I went on my second visit, I never had a real problem with the first. There was obviously Commodore 64s, VIC-20s and Amigas. That's what you'd expect. There were arcade machines. I think I saw a couple of pinball machines. So it had a mixture of everything. And of course, all the kiosks, the Zap magazines were all in these videos. And I thought to myself, yeah, this looks pretty good. It even showed who the talkers were there. The great Jeff Minter was there again, as you'd expect. Andrew Braybrook was there, or listed as being there. It looked like it was going to be a much better event, but this should have been the first, or at least the second, and unfortunately it took to the fourth. I'm not sure how it's priced. The old ones used to be, you could have a weekend pass, a day pass, or if you were just buying the day, which was the Saturday or the Sunday, there was also the separate night event. I believe it went all wrong in the third event, and including the second event. The people that were there during the day could go to the night event and not pay any money for it. But what if you'd have bought the ticket? I'm not sure how that worked. Did they refund you? Not sure. But the night event looked fun, but of course, me being who I was and that, couldn't really go there. And the big question for me is, what happened to Drop Zone? Now, when I first went, the original Drop Zone was there on its original machine, donated for that particular event. And it was there for the second event as well. Andrew Braybrook coded it on this Atari. It was his machine, and it was there, and Mainmeister and I both had a play on that machine. Forwarding on a little bit, and a remaster or a remake of Drop Zone was there, and you could play it. It never seemed to come out. Looking at it about 6 or 7 months after that event, that was a year and a half ago, it seemed like there was some sort of like copywriting going on this. It had a few tweaks done to it. I believe that was at request because they didn't like certain aspects of it. And then nothing. Never found out. I haven't really re-looked though in the last year, 12 months. I just looked at it, well, it was a doomed project. It never came out. But because I played it, I wanted it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it was better, not saying it was worse. I played it, enjoyed myself with it, and thought, if this was cheap, I'll get it. And it was advertised for a while on Steam for you to buy. I believe it also was listed as being something to buy on the Switch and the Xbox and the PlayStation. And I have no idea if it was just the PC one that was boycotted and you could still get it on those console type machines. But I never saw it and I don't know what happened to it. So the Zap event was one. The other one was that there's a new game called R-Type Dimensions 3. Now, I remember R-Type 3 on the SNES. So I was interested because anybody that sort of like knows me knows I like something that's retro, but has a new modern splash over it. And so I'm interested in R-Type, aren't I? It's also my friend Mainmeister's one of his favourite games. And in the past, I've bought things like the new Raiden and I've bought the new Darius. Yeah, when they've been in sales on Steam. You know, these are sales where the games come out at a stupid price, 30, 40 odd pounds. I bought it for a £5 or £10. And that's because I love the old arcade stuff, and especially something that I've played. So R-Type Dimensions 3 is another one of those ones. And it comes out on the May 19th. So we're talking in Tuesday, aren't we? Yeah, it's the 17th today, as I've mentioned. And it looks just like all the others do. You can play it in 2D mode, 2.5 mode. There's a 3D mode. You can have it with original graphics. You can have it with new spectacular effects. There is a ton of extras in regards to the fact that you can make it look like an 8-bit Commodore 64. You can make it look like an 8-bit NES, an 8-bit PC Engine, although that's a hybrid 8-bit. 16-bit looking like an Amiga. 2.5 looking like a Saturn. All the way up to modern. And you can change it on the fly. So you can press a button and it will flip through these different modes, or you can lock it. So you can't do that because you could configure your joypad to have that button to flip. It has all of those things that my friend, I'm mentioning my friend Mainmeister a lot, but he plays this Gradius game that used to be on the PSP, I believe, or the PS1, and it's very much sideways scrolling game, but then it turns itself slightly and you can go along like this, sort of diagonally, and it's super stylized and he loves it. So I'm mentioning it really because A, I'm interested, but B, my friend Mainmeister might, if he watches this. Not sure on that, but he'll probably mention it at some point because it's a retro news event, isn't it? So that's the news. A bit longer this week. And we'll just talk a little bit about me. There's not much to talk about here. I spent a big amount of my time talking about how I used to look after my mum with my sister. And it was therefore, if you ever have to care for someone, you knew just what my day was supposed to be. And it was quite long-winded, but that's how long it takes for me to look after my mother. The carers package has now ended. It ended Tuesday. So it was down to me and my sister on Wednesday to be totally by ourselves. We had to learn how to put the incontinence sheets there, how to put the slide sheet there, how to take my mother's pajamas off, how to put new pajamas on, how to put a new pad on, how to clean her up. And from our own observations, we both picked up on things that, oh, I remember them doing this. And I would turn around and say, yeah, and I remember them doing this. And for a first try, I timed it. We did it in 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And that's good. And the reason for that is I'd already done the breakfasts, I'd already done the medication, I'd already done the heating of the room before my mother my sister even turned up. I'd hoovered up, all of that sort of stuff, because I got up at this normal time, the standard time. So what I was timing was the actual cleaning of my mother, washing her up, putting the gels on and everything else. So I could tell work, this is how long it takes, because what needs to be recognised by both my sister and I, we both agree, some things that I used to do have now got to be done totally by my sister, because I will need to sit at my desk. So it's good that I can go back to work and tell them what used to take us 45 minutes will probably be around about the same. So I will add that in that extra 15 minutes, taking away the washing, putting the washing on, cleaning up the toothbrush, the cup, the bowl, the sponges, all of that sort of stuff in that 15 minutes. And my sister will have to do probably the medication, the breakfasts, etc. So that's all there is to say about that. All of the time, my mother has been in a good fashion. Very little no, and all of that sort of stuff, screaming because we're touching her legs. All of that seems to have gone away. But as I expressed to my sister, there is still work to do, because I'd like my mother to move her legs while she's in bed. We used to do a little test and say, Mum, can you lift your left leg 3 times and put it down? And we haven't been doing that. So we're bringing that back in. And we're getting much more proficient at cleaning my mum and putting the pad on and working out when to put the pajamas on, because we don't want our mother to be cold. So there's that little bit about this week with my mother. The carers package is finished. It's now totally over to my sister and I, and we are working on it to perfect it. You remember, we've got to do changing sheets, changing the top sheet, changing the bottom sheet, the duvet covers, all of that sort of stuff. And remember, by the way, sorry, I mentioned at the beginning, I'm sure the phone needs to be on to tell me whether there is anything that I need to have emergency, and there isn't at the moment, so that's great. So, yeah, that was the week with my mum, and she's in good health. For me, I've spoken to work. I've had an occupational health report done. That report has gone to them, and I need to have another meeting on Wednesday to formalise how work can help me when I go back to work. The fit note was extended because I had a doctor's meeting. When I went to the doctor's on Tuesday, it took me over 25 minutes to get to the doctor's that usually took me 10. That's because of the pain I'm in. When I got there, we did some exercises. She pushed her thumbs and hands into my back. She recognised that I've got the spinal stenosis, that's what it's called, is inflamed and will take 4 to 6 weeks to repair. We're only into the 2nd week, so she extended it to past the bank holiday. Occupational health also said exactly the same thing. They changed the wording, because what work put when they started the occupational health report was they said that my problem happened because of a fall. Well, that's technically, in a way, true. But what happened was my mum fell onto me, forcing me to fall. It wasn't like I tripped and fell, which is a fall in my mind. It was a fall based on protecting my mother during her exercise routine to get to bed, which resulted in my mum having a broken hip. So they recognised that, changed the wording there, put their recommendations in, and stated that further meetings would be required when I went back to work, recognising what other bits of equipment are going to be needed, could only be done when I'm back at work, and it should be a phased return. Obviously, that's because I need to sit in this chair for a certain amount of time and be able to do my job. I am not worried about this. I am in a lot of pain at the moment. I do feel things are getting a little bit better in the morning. Maybe that's because of the tablets I'm taking at night. I have not reduced my dose yet. That's something that I probably have to do at the end of this week. but it means that more exercise is required. I went and did more walking this week. I did 2 to 3 walks, went round the block. The block is about a third of a mile. And it took the first time 7.5 minutes. Times that by 3, 7, 14, 21. We're looking at 22 minutes to do a mile. Before all of this happened, I was doing an 18-minute mile, which just goes to show how much of a slowdown there is. And I'm hobbling as well. And when I got to my second and third walk, it reduced to just over 7 minutes. So I've knocked 20 odd minutes. Now, it's not about the speed, it's about the comfort and the walking. That now needs to be concentrated on and extending. The speed is not important, but it just gave me a brief guide. So I will now be extending to half a mile to 3/4 of a mile this week. A couple of times during the day, which means my sister needs to be here. And that'll be happening from when I've finished with my mother and the care for her. So, yeah, a lot going on in regards to that. Work was involved. And for me, a challenging week because of the exercise. I've got new exercises that are listed on these sheets of paper. Don't know if I can show any of them. That's the fit note. I believe this is the spinal stenosis. You can see there. And some of the exercises, I believe, are in here. Yes, there's a few of them. And there. And I've been doing reps on those. And it pulls my back and makes me twist and all of that sort of stuff. We have to understand here that I've had sciatica, an operation on sciatica, but the operation leaves scar tissue, and we believe the scar tissue is torn. That meld is going to take some time. I also recognise that, because it's in my old report, that the gel sacks between the vertebrae is very worn, and at some point it will be bone against bone. That's when you feel real pain. And we're 20 odd years on. So I believe that might be part of the problem. We will see in 4 to 6 weeks' time. That's the end of that. And I did that in exactly the normal amount of time. I need to just pause this recording because the next section is coming up. And I'll be back soon after I've just exercised my back a little bit and got some water for myself, because I damn well forgot it, didn't I? So back in a moment. So I've done some exercises. I got my water ready. And we really move on now to the shout outs. I really like this section. I love anybody that watches this little diary that I do. But there are also friends of mine that like to leave a comment, and it's nice to put those there. Like I say, big thank you to all the people that watch this. It really does make me feel proud and confident to carry on doing something like this. And of course, everybody's got a busy life and not can always leave a comment, but it's nice to know that it's being watched, and I can see that every week during this blog. And so I'm going to do a quick shout out. They're not in any particular order. All of these people have left a comment, and I'm going to read those out. So they are Denny, Ian Hill, The Ramblings, Wee Bob, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, and Cy Robson. And like I say, there have been some others that have actually left me little messages in my Discord and have communicated to me directly because they're that close to me. And to all of those people, thank you so much. And so we'll get to the shout outs. I'm just clicking on it now, expanding it out, and I'll make the text a little bit bigger for me. There we go. And the first one that's here that I'm going to read out is Denny. My friend Denny. We haven't heard from him for a while, and he's put, "Hiya, mate." Bloody hell, it's War and Peace, because I can see this already. It's finally great to be back. I'm not in the best of places currently, but you're a great strength of motivation on how you cope with stressful situations. Well, this was all an experiment at the beginning, and I think you get to see how I've had to cope with certain situations, and I hope that's come across. It is a sort of a legacy stream of a sort. Your mother is blessed to have such a wonderful, caring son. Thank you very much. We must include my daughter here. Family is everything, though. Though you may be running on empty, the majority of the day you're there for her. Always take strength from those times of respite, whether it's to sleep, play games, or watch a film. I find those times extremely important to refresh and reset. And yes, this is all something that was discussed with my sister and in my own head, and I'm trying to find the time to do stuff on Steam, but also play games, watch films, all of that sort of stuff that you need to do. You carry on. I hope your sister has a speedy recovery. Hopefully it won't be long before she's on the mend. Well, obviously I can't really speak for my sister, but I can say from observation and from what I've asked, she's just very tired at the moment, but she's in good spirits. Concentration is totally on my mum. We work together and things are going well. And every day I do see my sister getting stronger, but that tiredness is a factor, and it's something that I'm totally having the forefront of my mind, if you see what I mean. So my sister is blood, and so therefore totally want her to be well. Before I embark on my novel of comments, and unless you've discussed this before in a previous Vblog, I remember not so long ago people asking you to use timestamps. Well, there's now an ask button near the like button. Pressing that breaks down your video, showing what you've discussed with timestamps. An excellent addition. Do you know what? I haven't seen that. I did timestamp a few of my videos. It's a long old process, especially when I stated that the first year ones, so in other words, anything that would say year 5, I wouldn't timestamp. But anything before, I would, because it's old and historic. I like people to watch the diary all the way through. If you jump to the bits, it really knocks the algorithm, because there is an area called how long you watched. So I noticed in my blog there are certain sections, because people recognize how I break this up in my diary, which is the shout out section, the news section, a section of what I watched, and at the end what I've bought, and possibly something maybe at the end that's different or new or something I want to discuss. So people know the sort of pace of this. So I thought to myself, the first year stuff doesn't need that. If they want to go to those sections, it's pretty obvious where those are. And you know, the timestamp of this is always around the 2-hour mark, which some people may go, ooh, but others have watched it over a period of time. You don't have to watch this all in one. And they like to drive to work or do whatever they've got to do. And so they come back, and that's very good. So I like that aspect of things. But that's very good to know that there's this ask button. Definitely need to look into that. Oh yes, there's a little story here. that I mentioned last week. Wasn't it wonderful to see David Attenborough reach 100? No doubt he found the fountain of youth on many of his travels. I bet he did. He really doesn't look that different. And it's great to see. And I mean, I watched that little concert because it was on iPlayer and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope I look that good if I ever reach that age. Yeah, are we going to, Denny, you and I? Who knows? Life on Earth has to be my favourites of his shows. Oh, I remember watching that on a Sunday in my teens. I remember fondly, and they showed the videos of it, him mixing with the gorillas. But I remember a lot of those things that were in that show. Just got something on my phone, don't know what that was. But it was really good. Life on Earth has to be my favourite of his shows. Not long ago, got this on Blu-ray. Wow, yeah, I haven't actually thought about buying that. I've bought Planet Earth and Planet Earth 2 and a few other things. But I haven't bought the old shows, and I should do. It's really good. You continue. AI, you mentioned. Yes, enjoyed this section of the diary. When used correctly, I'm all for it. I'm not blessed with my artistry at all. AI helps design the pictures I have in my head or help restore pictures, which is something I'm passionate about. Yes, I've seen them, and I've seen them this week, matey, and you've been redoing the covers to many of those adventure games that we both played. And they look exceptional, matey, absolutely fantastic. Depending on the results, I'd like to restore a Zap magazine. Thumbnails get great usage from AI if done correctly. Yeah, we have to use that word correctly. All of us have the ability to use AI if we want. We don't know quite how far it goes, and some of us think it goes too far. And it depends on what tool you're using and how structured it is to do these things, or whether you do something in a tool, come out and then say to the AI, correct this please. And again, no problems if it depending on the task at hand is what I'm saying. But you continue. AI in films. In some circumstances, I'm for bringing back actors that have passed away. The Crow is an example where AI would benefit. Yeah, I know there's a lot that would be 50-50 or maybe 60-40 on this. Possibly more. I might be totally wrong. Like I said, I've mentioned what my opinions of our AI in regards to this, so I don't need to go over that again. No problems though. Other people, you go with where you need to go. A full AI film though. Now, there's a talking point. AI live action films will arrive one day. Film companies and distributors may look at this as a cheaper alternative to paying someone like Tom Cruise millions before a single cell of film has been shot. Personally, I'm a fan of practical effects. Society is a perfect example, as is The Thing. Yeah, I'm all for the old method of making films. I'm totally unsure and possibly more against somebody taking the likeness of someone and then making an AI film and they get nothing. But maybe they get something. Maybe they're happy with it. I don't know. That one is one for definite discussion, Denny. Maybe we will do that. That may be something that'll be fun. He continues, that's why physical media thrives. The 60s, 70s and 80s were the golden age of cinema. There will never be a block of eras of quality like there was between those. Yeah, 60s, 70s, 80s, yeah. 90s, slightly less so than the 80s. 2000s, I'm in a cloud on. because I haven't seen that many. This is where I bought a house, was in Manchester, couldn't really afford physical media, wasn't going to the cinema a lot. I was in an unknown place, unknown people. They didn't have the cinema sort of like aspect of them in their own hobbies. It was more about getting home, to get to from work to home, travelling along the motorway, which would take them possibly 30 or 40 minutes, having their tea and spending time with family. There was very little after work drinking or any of that sort of stuff. Cinema was definitely on the sideburns. And so for me, it was difficult as well. I was also going out with a girl in a couple of those years, and we did go to the cinema. But again, you bought a house, money is tight, so less so. But yeah, interesting, that one. Speaking of cinema, the only film I'm looking forward to is The Dog Stars, a post-apocalyptic film directed by Ridley Scott. There's a trailer currently doing the rounds. I don't think I saw The Dog Stars listed as a film for this year. I may be wrong on that. We will see. But I love Ridley Scott. You know full well I love Ridley Scott films. It will be one targeted by me, for definite. I was looking forward to The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan, but even he succumbed to the message nonsense. They just never learn. I think we all know what the message nonsense is. We don't need to go over that again. The Odyssey is still a film that I want to go and see. I'd like to see it at an IMAX cinema if I could, but they are far away from me because I live in a small, sleepy town with sleepy villagers, and it takes a good 40 minutes to travel to, say, Oxford or Coventry, and even further for Birmingham. So a little bit more difficult for me. Thanks to Ian and his interest in the Death Wish films, I found out some interesting information about the films, especially number 2, that's Death Wish 2. Anyone interested, there's a thread on Dell's Discord. Yes, and I read it, and it's absolutely fantastic. You were spot on. And hopefully a few people that are in my Discord saw it. I hope you put it into your own Discord. Let me promote the fact that Denny also has his own Discord, and it's a thriving place where there's far more people, far more diverse things being mentioned. I'd love those things to be in my Discord. There are placeholders for those, but many of them are not used, so they may be removed because it'll make it a cleaner interface. Some people have already mentioned that I ought to be doing that, and I will get round to doing that. Sorry, needed a bit of water there. Now some game recommendations. Some great indie titles are being released on Steam. Check these out, they are absolutely wonderful. Firstly, Windrose, a fantastic pirate game, away from life, a castaway build-em-up survival game. Fantastic. Really, really looking forward to that one. He mentioned it to me before. I didn't quite have the cash at the time, but I love Sid Meier's Pirates, so that really got me. Hellforged. Now I know this one. This is one I'm really excited about. Hellforged, a vampire survivor type game, fantastic graphics and gameplay. Totally agree with that. It's like that game you bought for me. What's it called? Hell Torment or something? I can't remember. Even the beginning where you start off looks like that camping area. But Hellforged doesn't have a release yet. You can actually be part of the beta test. You can click on a button and an email will come through to you. I've clicked on that button. Haven't had the email yet, but yeah, I definitely am interested in that one. The next one, Outbound. You travel in a van around an environment, collecting resources and building a bigger, movable base through various maps. It sounds bland, but I've watched numerous videos and got addicted through it's hard to explain why. Worth checking out some YouTube videos. I've seen your Terratech Legions that you mentioned. Definitely a worthy addition to anyone's collection. Yeah, I really got into Terratech Legions. It was in a sale because it was its first week. It was even on full price below a tenner. So you can imagine I got a good discount on it, and really like it. It's got a sort of Meccano Lego type section to it where you bolt onto your vehicle. You need to get to certain sections of the map. You don't really control the fire. It's all automated weaponry on this floating base of wheels. You can be a tank type where you collide and smash into them. You could be a warhorse, all sorts of firepower that's laser, ballistic, quick shots around. And you buy protection through cards that come up. You know, it's a rogue light. And I really, really liked it. And I suppose it's because I was making way. I started off and never got anywhere. Each time that I did, I unlocked slightly more percentage of a stronger vehicle, to the point where I found it easy to build my vehicle and get the bits that I needed and do the thing without having too much of a problem. So it's one of those, play it for 5-10 minutes and bugger off and go off and do stuff in the real world type thing. And that suits me very, very well. You continue. I've started to add more soundtracks to my collection from movies. The latest are musicals, Willy Wonka and The Chocolate Factory and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Hopefully my up-and-coming visit to Llandudno's charity shops come up with bargains like last year's Medicine Man. What a soundtrack Medicine Man is. It's one of my top tier suggestions for people to buy. Medicine Man is a Jerry Goldsmith score. Love that. It's a great film with Sean Connery where he discovers the cure for cancer and loses it. But the score on it is, I've told the story many times. Back in the day, I played it at a stupid sound level. It blew my bass speakers. The cones cracked and I had to replace my speakers. It was stupid of me. Shouldn't have had it at that level of bass. But wow, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I have both of those. The Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is an expanded score now. I've even got the musical version that was bought for me by a girlfriend that I had in London in the 2000s. After I left working for Lloyd's Bank, I befriended this lovely lady and was down in London for a good 4 or 5 months. I'd sold my house. I had the time. We went to an Elton John concert, bought many of my TV stuff like 24 and Lost and all that down in London, going to stores like HMV and stores like that. Some of those stores are defunct now. It's nice looking at the receipts that I used to poke inside the actual cases. And, had a great time there. That was brilliant. Yeah. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I've got the original Gene Wilder one. I don't know if I've got the later remakes of that. But it wasn't as good. Anyway, the original one is always the best. You carry on. Also check out 2 retro YouTubers. Their context is first class. Both are spectrum focused and worthy of anyone's time. Retro Kevo, that's retro space Kevo or Kevo, it's Kevo. And Sir Clive's Retro Game World. They're the 2 channels. A breath of fresh air from the usual paid content creators. It's funny, isn't it, that a lot of spectrum focused at the moment. I do recognise that were in 1982, going back to Spectrum stuff. Some are celebrating that in 2026 as anniversary stuff. My friend Mainmeister's doing Spectrum stuff. 20th Century Games doing Spectrum stuff. My friend Steve Still Plays Games always goes back to his Spectrum. There is a section in Robert's Retro Gaming, and I miss sometimes the fact that C64 is not there. It's all seemed to be Spectrum related. However, I am definitely going to go to Retro Kivo and Sir Clive's Retro Games World because I have no problem with the Spectrum. It's not that old playground battle that it used to be. There are a lot of Spectrum stuff that I'm unfamiliar with. It's that nostalgia element where I only had a Spectrum for 6 months and I only really discovered the Spectrum through emulation. So I have less of a feel for the Spectrum, but have a hunger to know more, which is why I still watch that type of stuff. Your differences will be there, and I urge you to go and have a little look. If you don't know anything about the Spectrum, you're going to learn something. If you know about it, it's going to be another couple of channels if you don't know about them. So very good to point those out. Also, as you know, the creators of Lemon 64, Lemon Amiga, have now gone on live with Lemon 20. Yes, I was aware of this. It was a couple of weeks ago I found out about. A fantastic repository of things Commodore VIC-20. The games database is absolutely phenomenal. It included magazine type-in listings as well as commercial releases. The database currently has 3,050 games with many more to be added. And wow, yes, I thought that the Commodore VIC-20 was around about the 2,000 mark. 3,050 means I've got a lot of work to do. So I'll definitely be looking there a little bit closer. So a question for this week. Indie games are really coming up trumps lately. Windrose is one of those games written for gamers by gamers instead of AAA companies making a game no one wants. Are indie games, in your opinion, a better option these days, considering early access gives you a chance to buy in early, most times at a cheap price? Let's be honest. AAA games tend to be released in an early state as well, with many bugs at prices exceeding £70. What do I think about this? Totally with you. I'm an indie person. I've very rarely bought AAA titles. They've been mostly for my new Switch 2, which is behind me there. Rarely on the PS5. It's usually because I'm a subscriber, so I get free games per month. I do buy the odd VR game on top of the monthly allocation that I'm given. But when it comes to Steam, I'm all over the indie. Just this week, I think they've just released Forza 6. Full of bugs, apparently. 70 quid. All that DLC, buy a map. Bollocks, really. I excuse my French, but it is. And here I am. I could buy 2 or 3 indie games for that one title. I could buy your Windrose, for instance, and probably 2 other games, or even 3 in the indie racket, and be equally as amazed and pleased with my purchases. So absolutely am I behind the indie stuff. They're probably a little bit more passionate as well about my retro side of things. So there's that to take into consideration. Take care, my friend. I have a week off soon, so a good chance for a phone chat. Yes, please text me when that week is. I know that you've texted me before. It was a couple of weeks ago, though, so I know that things change. So it'd be really nice to get caught up over the phone. The last time we spoke for a good hour and a half, 2 hours, and I let you spiel the beans about you. Be nice for me to have actually talk about me a little bit, so you know what's going on. So he says, take care, my friend. I have a week off, so let's have a phone chat. Thank you so much. That was long, so I'm going to take another little pause because my legs and back are taking up some things. I'm sure the others will be much shorter, but I really loved Denny coming back and reading that out. So won't be a moment. And I've just been told that we're 20 minutes away from me doing my next change with my mother and my sister. I explained to her, funnily enough, about what I'd mentioned in this blog, and she wanted to express to everybody, thank you very much for your care and understanding, and she didn't bleed to death. Now, I said I wouldn't mention that, but she said, no, I ought to mention it. So there we are, fun little aspect. She didn't bleed to death. No, she didn't. She's looking really well, actually. So here we go. We get to the next one, which is my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings, who, you know, I do a weekly with on Wednesday. It was very weird this Wednesday because it was the first time without the carers after the last 6 weeks. So I was concerned a little bit about how long I was away from my mother for and how quickly my mum might go to sleep. Now, one little aspect of my mother is because she sleeps during the day, she wants to stay awake longer at night. This means I'm by myself and I have to look after my mum for longer. What I've managed to do is get her medicine in her, all of that sort of stuff, get a meal in her, make sure that she's hydrated, and then we watch religiously something together, usually Emmerdale and Coronation Street, so you know what time I'm talking about, 8 o'clock-ish, right? And at 9 o'clock, this is normally be where I'd turn the telly off, right? And I'd have my own time to myself. My mum's wide awake. So I leave the telly on, turn the light off in the living room, and let her watch by herself, and she slowly drifts to sleep. I then go back about 9:30ish, 20 to 9, and turn the telly off. She's asleep, put the bed into the rest position, and let her sleep. And that means that the time that I would have to myself is taken away slightly, but not by much. Happy to do that. And the 8 o'clock is the only bit that I can't watch Emmerdale with when I'm doing my live stream with my friend. But I've gone away and looked at my mum during that first hour, and he's allowed me to do so, and it's never interrupted anything. I'm gone away for 10 minutes where before I was gone for 40 because it would be trying to get my mum into bed. She's in bed, so it's working out really quite well. But let's start off. Ian Hill's got a great channel. He does more than just the live, but we'll talk about him a little bit later on. We'll see what he says. And he's put, hi Dale Boy, hope you and your mum are having a week without too many problems, having time together too, and enjoying that bond. Hope that's coming across for definite. This week, my health continued to improve and the healing progressed. I managed to walk into town to a charity furniture shop. I needed another bookcase. I found one and they have delivered it. Hopefully, it will last me a long time. I know I'm lucky having the space to be able to display them like this and have easy access to my collection. However, that is my Blu-ray and 4K discs. My DVDs are more chaotic on some shelves and on top of a large cupboard. It's the sheer amount of them that means I can't put them in bookcases like the Blu-rays and 4Ks. And this is where I talked to him about it and said, and we both agreed it's a wonderful thing to be able to display your stuff, put it on the shelf, put it in alphabetical order, whatever. And I don't have that luxury. It's not my house, it's my mother's. I've expanded into certain rooms, but I can't buy bookcases, put them in rooms that don't belong to me. And this room is about 18, 19 foot long by 9 foot wide. It is small, and it's where I've lived for 21 years. And it's very difficult when you've got to put your bed in here, your life with your computers, and of course, your entertainment system. So bookcases, no. Foldable crates, Yes. And then therefore, if I want to find something, bloody difficult. So I'm dead jealous. Enjoyed our live together on Wednesday. We had a good time and did go on longer this week. We did talk quite a while after, but I was well aware you need to get to your rest and go to bed. You get up at 6:30 a.m., which is early. Yeah, I do. You do need some quality sleep to help you be able to look after your mum. He recognises it, and I'm stupid because I continue the chat. And yeah, it's just we get into the mode. Do you know what I mean? It's that lovely place. So I have no problem with it, and and I try to rest up the following day. Be different though, matey, when I'm back at work. That won't be acceptable, really. But there we go. Watched a few films this week. Highlights were To Kill a Mockingbird. We talked about this and it was great in the stream. Starring Gregory Peck, an all-time classic, which it is, which still remains powerful. The second one was my weekly Hammer film in Taste the Blood of Dracula, 1970. This was the era of Hammer, by the way, where titillation was there. But the stories were still intriguing and good, and they had that Hammer feel. It's that Hammer feel that's hard to express, I think, in words, because it is a feel. It's something like, oh yeah, this is Hammer, and oh, I'm going to have a good time, and it starred Christopher Lee, Linda Hayden, Ralph Bates, Peter Sallis, and even an appearance by Roy Kinnear. It's perhaps my favourite of those Dracula films. Love the setting and seeing the hypercritical Victorian gentleman. You find yourself enjoying Dracula, getting his revenge. So my question this week is, do you think the whole idea of men being a gentleman in its broad term has gone? Is it an outmoded concept or something still very positive? Well, I think it's still something very positive, but I don't see it anymore. So is it outdated? How can you outdate something that's positive and true? Opening the door for women to get out of the car or go into something, or dressing up to go for a meal, paying for the meal, saying no, we won't go 50-50, I asked for this, it's my treat, doing things, out of politeness. And I use that word carefully, politeness. I find that people come across as not polite because they keep within themselves. They're watching their phones on trams and on tubes, even looking at their phones walking, which does my head in, or being in contact with people constantly while driving. We never used to have phones in cars much. Back in the day, they did start to come in, and they were there really as emergency features. My car's broken down, 999, that sort of thing. Now it's just calling you because I'm driving. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that tonight. Blah blah. On the phone. Wait till you get home. Have that chat then. Maybe some accidents might not happen. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. And I'm very passionate about that. I do know where there are times where it's enjoyable. I've got no problem with people using their phones to record their journey, talk about something that they're going to upload to YouTube. None of that. Not bothered about any of that. But I am when they're taking their kids to school or driving them back or any of that sort of stuff. I'm not that person that likes that. So yeah, politeness I think has gone, because it's not that they don't want to be polite, but they're so inbound in their own life and their own friend circle that they've got to have that chat while driving, walking, all of that, and researching while going along. I tend to have my phone on me when I'm walking. I've got a watch on that tells me the steps and the speed, and I'm listening to some music, and that's as far as it goes. I don't have that telephone conversation when I'm walking, any of that. Messages do come through, but I wait until I get home to read them. I don't know. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. What can I say? You put all my best wishes to you and have a reet grand time. I'll do it. I'll say thee again. I can't do it, you know. Watch his channel. Absolutely fantastic. If you're not subscribed, go over there. At least watch a couple of videos. Maybe like them. I would subscribe if you want daily content, because that's what comes out of his daily stuff. Brilliant. Fantastic. So salute, my friend, and salute as well to Denny. And we'll move on to the next one, because there's not that many this week. We get to Wee Bob. And Wee Bob has put, I realise it's a bit late, but hope you and your family are well. Hopefully your back gets sorted soon and your sister recovers well too. Questions for next time. What is your least favourite incarnation of Spider-Man in movies, comic, TV shows, etc.? That's interesting. In comics, that's a complex one. I've been collecting and I still collect now. I get my comics, by the way, from Read Comics. Great little company. Terry will look after you if you're interested in having any sort of like subscription monthly order at a good price with fantastic TNT postage to you, or through the Royal Mail if it's a small amount. If you they'll do one comic, they'll do hundreds. Fantastic. Terry, brilliant person. And in comics, you tend to have a run on the normal comic. I mean, it's at issue like 980 something now, so we're reaching the 1,000 mark, right? Which is going to be my point of whether I continue or jump off, because I think that might be a magical number to say I collected from 1972 and had a run to the 1,000 mark. But in around that core, there are retellings, reimaginations, side stories, and all of this sort of stuff. And there is also otherworldly Spider-Mans. Now, they've done Spider-Man India, Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Man UK, all of these sort of stuff. And those are my least favourites. I'm a guy that read Spider-Man as a person that was bitten by a radioactive spider. His name was Peter Parker, and this was him and his battles. He had mental battles, physical battles, everything thrown, including the kitchen sink, thrown at him. And that's what I enjoyed, plus the idea of webbing and all of that sort of stuff. It's nice sometimes to read an interesting story, but I have trouble sometimes with all these different multiverse type things. It wasn't me, and the style of writing doesn't suit me. So that's comics out the way. When it comes to cartoons, there was one called Spider-Man Unlimited, which is probably my least favourite Spider-Man. I love the old 60s one. I love the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I love the 90s Spider-Man. There are a few later ones that I dislike. There's one that's very kidified that's just called Spider-Man that ran for far too long. And I put it next to Spider-Man Unlimited, really. There's a modern day one that's come out at the same time as X-Men 97, is it? Which is hard to like, but I like it, if you see what I mean. It actually tells a story in a different way, but tries to be nostalgic. And it's not kidified. So I quite like it. Much better than the 2000s mess that was just called Spider-Man. So that's cartoons. TV, there's only ever really been one, and that was Spider-Man, the TV series of the 70s, and it's very hard to turn around and talk about it because it's in a bracket of itself. Nicholas Hammond played that. In the UK, and possibly around a bit of Europe, the TV series, which was a pilot movie, was given a cinema release. And I saw that at Cinema Club on the Saturday cinema clubs, and really enjoyed it. It was with a double bill of the Incredible Hulk, and I remember the poster, which was Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk on the same poster, and it was canon, and it was brilliant. Enjoyed my time with that. So I won't say I dislike it, and I won't say I like it as well. And there is a Japanese type one that was done a year later in a similar vein, which I got a lot of enjoyment out, but I could never really get into the mech type giant robot thing, but did like the kung fu element. I always imagine Bruce Lee being in there. It's very much a kick and punch and leaping about type thing, with these people coming in one at a time and then beating them off, sometimes using his webbing, but mostly jumping and leaping and fighting. So that's quite good. Film wise, now it's difficult because there is this, we are by ourselves and we are now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I suppose the closest thing to a perfect Spider-Man is the Sam Raimi trilogy, and I still count those as being my favourites, even though there is some things to like about stuff. I think I think Andrew Garfield had a bad rep, a bad situation. The trilogy had ended. Another person came into the costume. Some say he was the best Spider-Man. That's not far off, but a bad Peter Parker. Some say the Sam Raimi was the best Peter Parker and not a good Spider-Man. And they wouldn't be wrong with those concepts. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including the Sony separates, it's a mixed bag, and it's getting better. And there's one this year. The last one was a fan favourite, which I think people that individually went got enjoyment out of too. But it was a multiverse event. But I enjoyed it. But it's not Spider-Man that I read as a kid. But this next one, Brand New Day, I think Tom Holland's grown. He looks taller. He looks different. He looks now more the adult that I was reading when Romita took over the comics. And it comes out next month. And I've already told my sister I want to go and see that. And I don't think she has a problem with it. It's in the same month as The Odyssey, which makes it tricky for me, because if I could only go to the cinema once, which one do I do? The Odyssey or Spider-Man? And I think I'm going to have to choose Spider-Man just because of the age of it. So I'll end it there by saying the Sam Raimi, for definite. The 90s Spider-Man in the cartoons. The Romita era of the comics I like. When it comes to the dislikes, I've already mentioned them. So hopefully that's answered that. And I know now that I have to go and change my mother's pad. So you'll need to give me a moment, and I'll be back, and we will move on. And salute, wee Bob. Thank you so much. I hope I've given you a suitable answer. Back in a moment.
And I'm back, and wow, that took a bit longer than we thought. But my mum's very comfortable, and she's just about to eat something, and very happy with how it went. But yeah, there was a lot of cleaning up to do afterwards, not to get too graphic. But yeah, sorry, this will make this sort of like blog later. That's to be expected, but it'll always be out, so nothing to worry. And salute to wee Bob for his question. I hope I answered the Spider-Man section well enough for him. It is a difficult one because there is no, when you come across somebody who is as pure as I am with Spider-Man, it has to be sort of like how Romita and Steve Ditko and all of that did him. And when you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've had to encompass not only the nostalgia of that, but go with the modern. And that's why he's got things like organic webbing in certain stuff and stuff that I didn't like, but understood and then accepted it, because I think as a comic reader that reads all alternative universe type stuff through the years, it's been drip fed to me rather than blasted in my face. So I'm a different type of person that's that's going to answer that question. Salute, my friend, and we'll move to Colin Jones, aka Ponder, my friend, who's very technical. And I tell you what, I think his blog is this Monday. There you are. Unselfish plug there. Be about one-ish, I would have thought. Here, let's see what he's put. I'll let you know how to pronounce plans. Yeah, all right, in my next vlog. I'm not Welsh. I'm sorry. I destroyed it. Another reason why you ought to watch his blog. Honestly, not taking the mick, it's unlikely you'd know anyway. In fact, actually, after I said it, they mentioned them again on a news article, and to be quite honest, they said it pronounced correctly, and I went, oh, right. But I still can't do it. Anyway, glad to hear the warmth in your family now, and that your mother's health has improved. Sending my regards as always. I just wish you had better condition in yourself. I'm concentrating on that, matey. When it comes to my mother's health, it can't be an improvement. It's always flatlined or worse. But where she is at the moment is a steady line, and that's what we want. I do have the ZSNES emulator on my item list for my next vlog. Yeah, it's Super ZSNES. And I just wondered what your opinion of it was, being as it's the same developers 20 years on. And is there a place for it, being as emulators are sort of like now incorporated in things like Misters, where they're cores. Do you see what I mean? So I wondered on your opinion on that. Great answer to my finding out late question. Regarding the new handhelds, I refer back to my opinion on the C64 Mini when that came out. Full-sized working keyboard or GTFO? I understand that. Effing, yeah. It's why I do have the Spectrum. I have absolutely zero interest in a handheld computer of this era, personally, of course, and that's pretty much what I was trying to get at. It was the handheld aspect of it, no keyboard. It's probably as powerful and more powerful than the Mini. Don't care. Don't think I'd ever use the little screen. I'm not moving around, all that sort of stuff. Although sitting down with my mother, I could do things, but the Steam Deck is obviously where I'd go with that. Or the Asus, was it G-Rock, that my friend Steve still plays games, wholeheartedly loves. So a couple of options for me there. I'm going to stick with a simple question for this week. What upcoming movies are you looking forward to being released this year? And an interesting question, because we're sort of like halfway through the year. I'll tell you the films I'm not interested in, and some of these are big blockbusters, and it doesn't take away from the fact that other people will want them and love them. Don't get me wrong, this is a personal thing. I am not going to be watching at the pictures, I'll say that straight. Supergirl. I'm not going to be watching Hunger Games. You know, there's a new Hunger Games. I gave in with that quite some time ago. A new Jumanji. I think it's called Open World. No. Jumanji ended with me really with the Robin Williams and that Zafari spin-off type science fiction-y one. Never really got into the characters that are trapped and they're in individual bodies that aren't even their own gender type thing. The Karen Gillian one is a bloke inside her body and all of that sort of stuff. No, I'm sorry. Just not for me. Like, asking me to like a live action Lego movie or the live action Minecraft. I understand it. I had fun watching the Minecraft movie, and it did bloody well. Oh my God, was it one of the most like billion intake films? To me, I was looking at it going, where? But I'm not a kid. It wasn't aimed at me. He-Man. We therefore come to He-Man. Nah, not interested. I'll keep with the Dolph Lundgren live action on that one. And that goes for, and this is really weird of me to say, a new Star Wars film. I think there's one called Starfighter coming out close to Christmas. Won't interest me a little bit. Films that I'm interested in. Well, there's that Ridley Scott film that Denny talked about. And therefore the Odyssey is there. I'm still interested in that. And being a Spider-Man fan, I've got to see Spider-Man Brand New Day. That'll be something I really want to watch. I've recently watched the Dune films again because they've been on ITV. So Dune Part 1 was shown only this week on ITV3 or something. I got watching that again. I've watched them on my own 4K and really enjoyed them, and Dune 2 was phenomenal. So Dune Part 3, bit of trepidation on whether they can continue that high quality, but I've got a confidence in there that they will. So Part 3 is there. This therefore comes to the fact that if Spider-Man is Brand New Day's out, I'll be watching Avengers Doomsday. It's got a lot of hype. There's a lot of teaser stuff. Marvel don't do very well at the moment, especially with their TV stuff. This is, I think, their make or break, costing so much money that they'll never recoup that. And I don't think they're even trying to recoup. It's to get their standards back up. That's the whole point. If you keep that in mind, that they're not trying to recoup the money that they're spending on it, that they want to bring the standard up so that we've got everybody's attention and people are going, yeah, I like this. That's what they're aiming for. They don't care how much money they spend on it. So there is another Spider-Man movie that may come out at the end of this year, and it's the third part of the Spider-Man cartoon trilogy. I think this one's called Beyond the Multiverse. I think it winds it up. That'll be good. I'll be enjoying that. And there was talk, and I don't know if it's coming out, that the film Beekeeper is getting a sequel. Now, I like the first Beekeeper film. Stratham was in it. It was just entertaining. So if a Beekeeper 2 film is coming out, I'll watch that. But I think you've got some ones I'm not going to watch, ones that I want to watch in there. I haven't mentioned any horrors. There's bound sure to be a couple. I'll probably mention during Ian Hill the Ramblings live stream. But maybe that's a bit of a plug. But maybe a bit of a cop-out as well. But yeah, I there isn't any horrors that come to mind right now, if you see what I mean. Remember, I've just read your question. So there is that. So salute, my friend. Hope the blog goes well tomorrow. And the last one is, and not least, is a great friend of Ian Hill and a lovely bloke, all told, and so mindful of his films. He hasn't got a channel. I wish he did, in a way. And that's Cy Robson. And he's put sending hugs to you and your mum. And that's all I need. All I need out of a comment. Absolutely fantastic. And that ends the comments, and what a nice way to end it as well. You'll see and speak to Cy Robson on many different film channels. He's a great believer of going to chats about films, but he goes to so many films. He's one of those people that used to be like me in the 80s. Go, drop of a hat of a film and I was there. Do you know what I mean? So there's that. Thank you so much, Cy. That's really nice. And you know full well that'll be passed on to my mum.
So that ends that, and we're moving on to the watched on YouTube bit. Very simple on the watched on YouTube. It's in 3 sections, which is a general and what I totally always watch, a more film related one, and a more friends technical one that's more to do with the retro or vintage type of thing. So watched on YouTube this week. There are 4 that I always watch this week in retro, Tecmo, Gadget Show and Chronologically Gaming. And it was an interesting bunch this week. There was in this week in retro, 3 subjects: Hall of Fame games, Old Masters Never Give Up, and Merry Christmas Amigans. And it was just like I always do, a fun hour to watch. Full of news. There's housekeeping and this week's community question, and they're expanding and getting larger all the time with people watching that channel, so absolutely marvellous. Techmoan is one that I've been watching ever since he used to do just car webcam devices. That's what he generally used to do, and he expanded into hi-fi and then all of this old stuff, and I love the old turnstiles and all of that. This week it was a not a brand new, but they've been around for a few years, a wheel out telly type thing that's on a stand. It's the LG Stand By Me 2, and he put at the end, "This was a mistake." Now, some people put these little comments at the end to make you watch it. It was a mistake in regards to what he's referring to, but probably not a mistake for you. You have to watch it, really. That's the best way to talk about it. But this TV was touchscreen. It really was like a 27-inch large tablet with a Bose speaker underneath it on a stand that you could wheel out. And, I can understand the reason it's there in the world. Do you see what I mean? But I also understand the not need for it, and you could do it yourself by building a stand yourself. So bear that in mind. The Gadget Show, there was a couple of videos. They were why tech of the 2000s was just better, and the falls Apple want you to forget. I like these. They sometimes go into the past, like the Newton. That's one of the Apple devices, and the Pippin. But we've seen them all before. And why tech of the 2000s was just better is a comfort zone probably for them, in regards to that's when they started doing the Gadget Show. And everything that they were doing there was based on making your quality of life better. And everything that you saw in the 90s and the 70s was the lead up to what we consider proper tech. But think about it for a minute. So many people these days of my age are going, I wish a phone was just a phone. Do we need this smart tech with a screen and apps and all of that sort of stuff? It's a debate. So look at it like that. And Chronologically Gaming, like I said, he's going to be here a while. He's still doing December 1982, but I think he's getting close to the end. And he did a game called Frax Lair for the Atari 800. It is a 1982 game. It does look basic, but I love it when he does those. And I tell you what, I had great fun. And I pulled that game out and played it this week. I had some fun with it, to be quite honest. I've mentioned it to a few other people. You never know whether they might do a video on it. But it really was just a very simplified, you could almost say River Raid-ish type game. So we'll see. Then I watched Retro Game Diaries. Now that's a channel that I don't mention an awful lot. Retro Game Diaries. They did a Raid Over Moscow retrospective. And Raid Over Moscow is one of those fun games that I love to play. And it was nice seeing all the other different machines, computers that it was on. There was one there that took me by surprise. So that was one reason for watching it. Then C64 Audio pumped out a few retro niceties. 2 that are mentioned, even though there's more. Back in Time Live on the 16th of the 5th, 2026, Ken's highlight. And Back in Time Live, 16th of the 5th, 2001, different year, BBC report. So back in its infancy, 2001, when I was back in Manchester and I knew about the remake, or should I say remix scene for Commodore 64 gaming tunes, they had a concert where they had people turn up to dance. It was like a club. I wanted to go. It was in Birmingham. If I was still living at home, I'd have gone to the damn thing. But I was living in Manchester. What I knew is that the BBC did do a small little segment on it, interviewed people that were at that club that was going to be entertained at that night. And I found great delight watching it again. So if you're into that sort of thing, go and watch that. C64 Audio. He's also got a place where you can buy on CD these remixes and links to free stuff. In fact, an old friend Panther used to do remixes, and you could get his stuff for free there, and you probably still can. So little unselfish plug there as well for an old mate, Panther. Then you've got Gen X Collect. Now, he's a trading card unboxer. Not for everybody trading cards unboxing, but he's still unboxing the Spider-Man 60-year box that I did. And he brought out a channel, an episode, Spider-Man 60 Years, Insane Hollow Pulls. So out of this box, you're going to get some insane holographic type cards to look at, which are beautiful, by the way. Then we get to mid-level media. Now, I've got a bit of a point to say about mid-level media. I do watch his channel on occasion. It tells me about films that are coming out. But he did an episode in the last day called I'm Just Panic Buying 20th Century Fox currently. Now, when you actually watch it, he actually starts off by saying, by the way, this is all just me. And it's not to incur people to go out and now suddenly go out and just buy these. It's my opinion and my opinion only. But he put it in his thumbnail and he put it in his title. And what people generally do when they see it, they think, oh my God, something's happening. Maybe I've got to go out and buy all 20th century stuff because something's happening, right? It incites that. So that's the only thing I've got to say about that. And I don't mean to be negative. It's just, that's what, as soon as I saw the thumbnail, I went, this is inciting people to do things that they don't need to do. There's no shortage. They haven't suddenly gone, oh, right, you know, we're not doing this. There are tons of 20th Century Fox Blu-rays out there for everybody in the world. There's the Italy ones, French, German, English, American, in China, all of those across the world. So I just go, nah. That's all I can say about that. One that was mentioned by Denny. It's a channel called GDH Joe. Just one word, GDH Joe. And he was showing off Hellforged, the new roguelite. Now, this is how I knew about it. But it was nice that Denny mentioned it because it knows that he's on the same page as me. And I might have missed it. So it's been mentioned now a couple of times in this blog, in this diary. So please recognize that that looks like a indie game worth keeping an eye out on. It's not out yet though. Remember? Then you got Jay's 2 Cents. Now I like Jay's 2 Cents channel. It's all about building PCs. Now he does other things, but he did two that interested me this time. It was, how much RAM do you really need? So many people out there are scared about RAM at the moment. Oh God, DDR5, it's going to cost me 400 quid, all of that sort of stuff. And quite rightly it is, because of those AI bastards. And I'm excuse my French on it, but you know, I have an opinion on it. How much RAM do you need? Go and watch it. It's worth looking at. You might be able to get around this problem. That's all I'm going to say. And then he did an Intel processors 6 months on. Are they really as bad as the critics say? And remember, I used that word And he uses that word specifically, critics. So many people criticised the Intel chipset. They said, oh, you got to buy Ryzen, these are shit, look at these figures, look at these benchmarks. And quite rightly, he's turning around saying, benchmarks? What we do in benchmarks is try and break the damn thing, right? You're never, ever going to try and put your game through these paces. It will run as smooth as silk. You don't need to worry about it. But when you do try, and you've got the FPS in the corner, and you're looking at the whole of the system, then of course what we're trying to do is push it beyond the envelope and break it. And obviously the Ryzen is more stable. But he said this quite specifically, and it's not a spoiler. You put the Intel next to the Ryzen and play the same game, doubtful you'll see anything different. Doubtful. And he uses that word doubtful because you can't necessarily, because somebody's going to come back and say, I did that, look, and this happened, right? This little thing. And you said it wouldn't happen. Don't finger point like that. We're talking about how close it would be. Darn close. And something for you not to worry about. There you are. That's what I watched on YouTube. Now we get to the film, TV and soundtrack section. So right at the top, we've got Ian Hill, The Ramblings. And oh my God, what a nice guy he is and how much content did he bring out. Here we go. My top Westerns, 2013 to 2020. He's probably done a 2021 now. He's getting close to the end of those. Doctor Who reviews The Underwater Menace. Patrick Troughton, got to watch that. Fantastic. X-Files review, Season 6, Episode 11. Brilliant again. Love the X-Files. Nice to reminisce. Gets the information I need about it. Remember it. What have I watched? Episode 18. Well, you've heard some of the stuff he's watched. You've heard, if you go to what we did on Wednesday, you'll know a bit more. And of course, there's going to be a few little extras in there. So that's well worth watching. And then he did a live with me. Episode 107. We've done, matey, and I'm talking directly to Ian now, 107 of these babies. And I'll tell you what, enjoyed absolutely every single one of them. Never a crossword. We have fun. It's almost like us going for a pint and just chatting about films with other people in the room, piping in with their ideas and comments. Brilliant. Love it. That's Ian Hill, The Ramblings. Fantastic. What you doing? Just go over there, subscribe, like. You know what I mean? Then we get to Movie Collector. I talk about him a lot. He's an ex-projectionist. He did a Cinerama at home video. You might not know what Cinerama is, but Cinerama was an old type projection system. You might have seen it in How the West Was Won, where 3 cameras were used, and it was so ultra wide you needed a projector that was special. And he was reminiscing and going over film footage of going to a place where you'd be able to project those types of films still now in the modern day, and there ain't that many of them. So that was great. Enjoyed that. I'm just going to get some water. Moving on, we get to Just Joshings, who used to be Through the Lens. He did some shorts this week. Why I Love Planet of the Apes, and when a director uses a budget. No problems with these videos. Love them. Only opinion I have with the Planet of the Apes was it was all about the new ones. There's the old ones to consider as well. If you haven't seen them, I wholeheartedly, Josh, recommend you go. Planet of the Apes is my favourite film, the original, with Charlton Heston. So, you know, fantastic. But your little short was brilliant. I mean, it explained it away totally on why you love it. And I can see that why. Moving on to Mondo Celovic Movies, who's my go-to guy for horror. He did a video, 3 amazing 4K imprint films, cult classic pickups. So it's nice, these, because they tell you a little bit about films that you can go out and get now yourself if you wanted to. These are by a distributor called Imprint. So definitely worth your time. Then there's a friend of the channel, David Mansell. He did a couple of videos this week. Top 15 films of the 1980s, based on, I dare say, a lot of the videos that are going out at the moment, where so many people have been called out and say, can you give me your top 10 80s films? He did top 15. Nothing wrong with that. And then he did a show and tell of his PlayStation 4 and 5 games that he actually owns. I enjoyed a lot of these videos that he's done, and I hope that they continue. And then we've got, lastly, Commode and Mayo's take. There was no Commode and Mayo on film podcast, but there was a Commode and Mayo's take this week. He did reviews of the Christophers, Jimper and Normal, plus the box office top 10. Those are all films that are out this week. And we will move on to the last page, which is Gamers and Tech YouTube. And I'm just going to take yet another break and be back in a second, and we can continue this. Won't be long. And I'm back, and it's getting quite late now in the day, so which means that this blog's probably going to come out later. But we've got to the last section. Thank you very much for bearing with me. I've had to move a little bit because of my leg and my back. I hope I haven't been moving too much, but apologies for that, and thank you for your understanding. And we get to the last page, which is Gaming and Tech YouTube, which is mostly my friends. They're in Discord. I speak to them outside of this little bubble that we call YouTube. And we get to Down the Rabbit Hole. Oh, such a nice guy. He's got a sister as well that does the Footnotes book reviews. So he did Sorry Bob, but I Am the Worst Dungeon Master. He put DM though, if you're looking for it. And Let's Try Out Pitcher's Duel on the Vectrex. Yes, he's got a Vectrex system and he loves it. And it's nice that he puts these homebrew games on and starts to play them. I'm interested in them as well because I'm getting a mini Vectrex soon. Will be this year. It's paid for, so I paid for it over a period of time. It was the only way I could afford it. I'd have loved to have been able to do what my friends have done. They've bought Ultimate 64s and bought many of the new tech that's coming out that I'd have liked to have bought, but I just couldn't put my money down on them. You know, things happen in your life. I'm just happy that my friends will get great fun out of those. If there was one I could buy, it would probably be the Ultimate 64 if I had the money. Just can't do it at the moment. But anyway, so Kev Down the Rabbit Hole, cheers. And we get to Robert's Retro Gaming. My God, man, he does such a lot. I mean, I have to read it out and it takes up such a big section of this page. He did Dwarf Fortress Classic episode 38, Minecraft Play episode 193, and I wonder what the 200th episode is going to be like. Just interested in that. He had arcade gameplay for Donkey Kong Jr., Steam gameplay on Mahokakenshi. I can't pronounce that very well, but it looked like a sort of like a turn-based strategy type thing. New retro Final Fantasy VII 2026 edition first look, and some Atari 8-bit gameplay, which is his main bread and butter. Gunlaw, bowling, and Ernie's Magic Shapes. And it's amazing, really, because when you see somebody go back to their Steam library and play something, it made me think something that, well, this will cheer Steve's gaming up. I've bought Skyrim on just about every platform: PlayStation, Xbox, PC, VR. And do you know what? I've even bought the physical release of it. I got the dragon statue when it came out. Never loaded it. Never played it. I must be one of the only few gamers out there that have not loaded that game up and played it. I wonder sometimes if I should do that and play it from scratch, like he does with his section, which I'll come up in a minute on another game. He might have great fun because he'll know all of that game and he'll see me cock it up at every situation that goes in there. Should I do a Skyrim series? I've tried doing Kingdom
come and all sorts of stuff. And because of what's happening with my mother, it hasn't happened. But maybe just start it up and come back to it and persevere. And it doesn't matter how long between episodes. I should do that. Maybe. We'll have a think about it. I mean, how many videos are there out of that damn game? Tons. Moving on to the man himself. Steve still plays games. He did his Dark Souls Remastered, and he's up to episode 20. And he did a Spectrum play of a game called Euro Junk Competition, which had me screaming at the monitor because it was so shit. It was written, it must have been in BASIC. It drew the page, it played through 40 tunes in the Spectrum mode of playing Eurovision hits, which I can't even remember how the tune goes for some of them. And if you're trying to recognize it with the Spectrum's bleeper, if you had a 128, but this thing was playing on the old-fashioned way and written in BASIC, so try to recognize all kinds of everything was a hard thing to do, matey. My God, I'm so glad you did it, because it just shows what type of games I don't want to play. That was awful. And I'm sorry for the programmer who made it. I'm sure you tried to entertain us, but my God, man, no. You could do a much better thing on the 128. Have another go. So there you are. There's some passion for you. 20th Century Gaming. Wow, he's done some stuff this week. Specky Live on, let's see, it was the 9th of the 5th, but he also did one yesterday on the 16th, and I'm so glad he did it, man. I didn't have to watch that Eurovision nonsense. Manic Miner playthrough, Ant Attack, and he put this, maybe a game I will stick with. So obviously a game that he's, I think, played but didn't play much back in the day, and he went back to it to have a little look. And Midnight Resistance first play on the Spectrum. Yes, this is where I was talking about. It's all Spectrum at the moment. Nothing wrong in that. It's quite good. It's definitely a game I want to play, that Midnight Resistance, after he was playing it. That was great. Really enjoyed that. Fantastic, mate. And salute to you. And salute to Steve, Robert, and Kev. I mentioned before. Then you got Wee Bob. Wee Bob's been doing this Project Zombie now, and he's up to episode 10, and it really is like listening to a novel on audio tape, but watching a person play a game and do a narrative over the top. Hard to explain. One you need to watch. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, couldn't see much from him. It was all upcoming news, but I do know, and this is not unprecedented, his Vblog is tomorrow. Put it in your diary. Definitely on that one. Then we got Seb's Place, who did Can the ZX Spectrum Save the World Cup? If you haven't guessed already, it's World Cup year. And I should think next month in June, we'll be starting off with England and their guide on trying to get through the World Cup. But what did we do during those World Cup times? I'll tell you what we did. We played football games on our computers. It was really nice. Could the ZX Spectrum be the winner of the World Cup in 2026? I think it's a no-brainer. It will be. And then we've got Mainmeister, who did a ZX Spectrum Remakes live stream last Sunday, and he did a Friday Waffle. He's had a very tough week, a week that I would want to have, and he said he's going to try and be around for a live tonight. Mainmeister, what a guy. One of the earliest friends I've got on YouTube. I was on his channel before I even had a channel. Definitely a guy who's been around for 14 years and worth your attention. So I'm going to switch now to overhead cam, because there's a couple of things that did come this week. I'll show the very basic ones first of all. There's a Fight Club steelbook, which I missed the first time. It's a nice, interesting steelbook, although I'd like more embossing. I'll show the back of it as well. There you are. And then we've got A Star Is Born, another one I missed on Steelbook, which I bought very cheaply. I prefer the original, but I have seen this film, and I'm glad I've got it in my collection because it was an okayish film. But the highlight of this week was this Arrow release. Arrow are really knocking it out the park at the moment. This is Mona Lisa, Bob Hoskins' handmade film from the 80s, which I really, really loved. It's sort of like a continuation. It's not really, but it is. The Long Good Friday was a gangster film, and this is along a similar vein. I won't give too much away. I'll put this up on the screen so you can read it. But they have knocked it out the park. It's in a slipcase. I may do an unboxing, but there we go. It's just the same cover in there. But it's a fantastic release. I'm so glad I pre-ordered it. It's one that I definitely I've watched this week. So I have actually watched it. And therefore we get to the end of the diary. I've interacted and said blog, diary so many times. It said diary, sorry if I said blog, all of that sort of stuff. But to end, had a wonderful time doing this. Lovely reading out the comments. Had a few breaks where I've had to look after my mum and I've had to look after my own leg. Apologies for that. But I've had a great time. Sorry, I need water. Not slurring my words, just very dry. So you can see my eyes are totally focused. I had a great time, and there will be one obviously next week. And I'll try and get some other Steam stuff out this week. It might be film related, it might be game related. I'm looking forward to next week. Going to be more learning to do, more adventures I'll be on. Health-wise, I'll be pushing as hard as I can. It's another bank holiday, I think, at the end of next week. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. So many of us are going to have a long weekend. So, with that in mind, hope you've enjoyed this. Bit shorter than normal. That's a good thing, maybe. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you got some enjoyment out of it. Salute to everybody out there. And thank you so much. Bye-bye.